there's been a lot of discussion on Facebook and things like that. People who play Edison format, people who just observe it, where we all kind of agree that Edison format it's fun. It's definitely fun, but it's a frustrating format from a deck building standpoint because basically all the decks suck. The format is super not solved. I wonder if it's possible to solve it. I wonder if we'll ever get to a point where there's a tier 0 deck or a deck that is so much better than the others that essentially we're all just playing mirror matches for the rest of the format and then we move on. I don't see that happening as of right now, although I have not gone over the entire card pool and tried to figure out myself if there's something that the entire community is missing. Also, I'm really not that guy anyway. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the guy that can go through the card pool and be like, oh, God, we're all stupid. Like, why are we not doing this?
Yeah, I think that there's enough variance that I don't think it can be solved. I don't think there's any way for there to be a deck that is built and it's like, this is the format solved, this is the only deck you can play. Because I think there's so many decks and so much variance that, let's say, you know, I'm just going to make decks up, whatever. Let's say Black Wings is the best deck, it can't be beat, whatever. I think that there's enough, there's enough cards where you can do things where, like, all right, well, this build of Lightsworn beats Black Wings, and then that Black Wing deck just gets murdered, and then it's like, well, this Gladiator Beast deck actually ends up beating this Lightsworn deck. Like, I do think there's enough decks and enough variance and card choices where if somebody decides this is the best deck, you can end up doing side deck stuff or even main deck stuff to start, like, hurting that.
Yeah, so what's interesting about it is that your deck could be the best that day for the tournament, right? Like,
yeah,
you could have, like, if you showed up with Glad Beast at certain tournaments, you would do well because people might not be playing, like, main deck Deep Prison, main deck Bottomless, for whatever reason, right? Like, I'm just using this as an example. And Glad Beast can really shine when they go unopposed in that way. But then if you show up in a tournament where people are blatantly siding for Glad Beast and they're main decking cards like Deep Prison and Bottomless, and you might play against too many cards that are too many decks that have big monsters. Like, if you play against Hero Beat, the deck that just summons Stratos, and then after that starts summoning Alias, which is a 1900 attack monster, which is way too much for Glad Beast to deal with. If you play against that deck too many times in the tournament and you're playing Glad Beast, you're going to lose. And you're out the tournament. If you play against a bunch of Frog Monarch decks, though, and you're playing with Glad Beast, you're going to win the tournament, right? So, like, it really depends on what the field is that day, and then your deck will kind of be good or bad that day, or depending on what your matchups are, your matchup spreads. And that's true for anything. Like, we talked with Joe Dietrich about how he won with the what's that guy called? Alistair deck, the Invoke deck, the Invoke Shadal Dogmatica deck that he played, right? So he won with that, but he did say he played against a lot of Sword Soul, and that is his best matchup, and he has not lost to a Sword Soul deck.
Yeah, he was like, I haven't lost to a Sword Soul in, like, a year. He said some crazy number.
It was a crazy stat. Like, 2 YCSs straight, he's played a lot of Sword Soul and has never lost to a Sword Soul deck.
Yeah.
So, like, he's lost to Bird Up. I think he lost to Kamal, who ended up winning one of the YCS remote duels. But, like, yeah, he essentially said that because of his matchups, like, that made his deck choice really good for that particular tournament. Like, he happened to go against the exact deck that he wanted. It's not like it was rocket science, right? Like, the Sword Soul deck is extremely popular. It's probably the most popular deck at that time.
Yeah.
So he made a good meta call, a deck that beats it, and he played against a lot of it as opposed to playing against the other scary deck, which is Bird Up. And it worked out. He ended up winning the whole tournament. I think the same thing can happen here in, like, Edison format is if you play against your good matchups, you will do well. When we play on Dueling Book, a lot of the time we play a bunch of game ones without siding, and I often tell, like, the group, some of these decks are only good turn, like, game one. Like, they're at their I should say they're at their best. It's not that they're only good game one, but they're at their absolute best game one because the side deck cards against them are blowouts. For example, the Sky Scourge Neuralis deck is very, very good game one. If we were playing Master Duel,
degenerate game one.
If Edison format was in Master Duel and it was best of one, right? Like, you just played one game and you moved on, the Neuralis deck would be so ignorant because turn one, there's really not any hand traps in Edison format outside of DD Crow. I think it's the only relevant hand trap, so I'm not even going to debate on other hand traps that might exist that no one fucking plays, like Gemini Imps or something like that. But let's just say DD Crow is the only relevant hand trap, right?
And Gores, but we're talking about that would do stuff outside of battle phase.
Yeah. Gores is not even. Yeah, I don't even consider him to be a hand trap, to be honest. He's too boomer of a card to be that now. The word hand trap, the connotation to it in 2022 does not include Gores anymore. Like that is it just does not include him.
No.
You can't sit with us, Gores.
No.
But DD Crow is the main one. It's in every one side deck. I mean, literally everyone side decks 2 DD Crows. It's very good in the format. It hits so many different decks. A lot of decks want to do shit with their graveyard. Three pot Avarice is legal. There's a lot of cards that it's good against. So the point is, game one, the Neuralis deck, when it goes first and it just kind of does its thing, if it draws Future Future, you lose. If it draws like, Phantom of Chaos with like Greffer and Neuralis and all those other things, Gold Sark and all that stuff, it can kind of just set up, blow everything up. You lose all of your cards, and then it draws one, so it goes +1 on you immediately. And then in the end phase, it typically starts something like Red Eyes Darkness Metal. The deck seems really, really good. It's a glass cannon deck though, so it doesn't really play any defense. It's kind of just like a all or nothing deck. And game one, it scrapes a lot of the decks. They don't have any way to do anything about it. They just kind of sit there and accept the dickings. And then games two, there's cards like Consecrated Light, which literally cut the entire deck off. Like if you don't draw Red Eyes Wyvern, which is a bad card to draw under normal circumstances, if you don't draw that card, there is no way in your entire deck to get Consecrated Light off the field. Literally that little ball, 0/0, 0 diffs your entire deck.
That card's fucked up.
Yes, you're the one who brought it to my attention because I forgot completely about Consecrated Light, but it also
because I was playing against Stango was using the fucking Neuralis deck, and I was getting so annoyed, and I was racking my brain, and I go, "Oh yeah, Consecrated Light."
Yeah, because what ends up happening is as we're playing all these game ones, right, with all these different decks on the EdisonFormat.com, we're just kind of grabbing them. Like I'll play this one, you play this one, and then we just load them up and we just play, right? What'll end up happening is if a deck looks too good, you kind of forget that, real Yu-Gi-Oh! Includes best 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
So when you're going, 10 and 5 against your cousin, or I should say you're going 5-10, and he's playing the Neuralis deck, right? And it seems like the Neuralis deck, like, damn, he's won 10 games, I won 5. It seems really good. But you're only playing game ones, and you can't really do much against it game one. But then game two, you sign in some cards, and it makes the matchup so much worse for the Neuralis deck. Like it goes down so many tiers. So you have to like pick and choose with stuff like that. Those glass cannon decks. Do you want a really good game one, but then you kind of suffer games 2 and 3? You're at the luck of your opponent not drawing their side deck cards. Like a lot of the time, it's like if he draws DD Crow here, when I go summon Phantom of Chaos, I go activate target Neuralis, and he goes chain DD Crow, banish it. You're fucked. Like your whole deck just fell apart. You have a Phantom of Chaos out there with 0/0 attack. That was your normal summon, which is a great resource in Edison format. I can't stress that enough. We would talk about that too, but like that just ends your turn. And if they're playing any deck, like it doesn't even need to be the craziest deck, but if they're just playing anything and they did that to you, you're probably just lost.
That's a good reason why I think that the format does have enough variability where it's going to be hard for there to be the best deck. Right now, a lot of people think the Diva Hero is the best deck, right? So that might mean that a lot of people's side deck is dedicated to dealing with Diva Hero. So if you go to a tournament with Neuralis, you might be able to just walk because people don't have Consecrated Light. And if it gets to the point where a lot of people are playing Neuralis, then all of a sudden everybody's going to have Consecrated Light in their side deck.
I think it is a developing matter for sure. Like I'm looking at the winner's deck, and his side deck against Neuralis, all he has is DD Crow and Vanity's Fiend. Vanity's Fiend is another card that if it hits the field, you probably just lose. I don't even know if you have any else of that at all. But I think the Neuralis deck, it might side. Okay, so here, the Neuralis deck actually did top. It got third at the tournament. So it actually came really close to winning now that I'm looking at it. And it sided Lightning Vortex, which is a really good card for dealing with all of those nonsense cards that just get it the fuck out the club. It just takes care of like everything. And you have a lot of cards to discard. The deck kind of doesn't care about its hand because its goal is to discard everyone's hand anyway. So like cards like Lightning Vortex, they're amazing for this. But he got third, which I didn't realize it placed this high, but that actually is scary because I do think this deck is toxic as hell. And it's
so toxic.
And I've actually mentioned to Kenny, I said if this deck became popular to the point where a lot of people played this, I would probably not want to play Edison format very long. Mm-hmm. Like if this became a standard deck that people just decided to play, I don't even care if people started main decking DD Crow because it became popular. I think that because then that's pushing it to like a point that I don't like.
Yeah.
Like once we're like, well, Neuralis is the best deck, or it's a deck that you're gonna play.
That doesn't happen.
Right. If people start saying that or doing that or playing it a lot, if it's a matchup that you're going to experience in every tournament a couple times and you have to start main decking cards to stop it, that is problematic as hell because the deck is really not interactive. It's not an interactive deck at all.
Like to clarify, we're not like bitching like, oh, this deck's unfair. What we're saying is like we don't really like the deck's game plan, and if it we don't think it's the best deck. But if it turns out that it is the best deck, it's the kind of deck that isn't fun to play against because it's just like it just wipes your board, wipes your hand, and now you're just top. Like it doesn't. You don't play Yu-Gi-Oh. You just like, well, I just top deck and hope that I win over fucking Dark Horse, Red Eyes, Darkness Metal, Dark Creator, and you're like, well, all right.
Yeah, it's just game. It's a scary ass deck. It really is. It's a fun deck to play too. It's just a turbo deck, and if you just want to kind of get some quick games in, I like the fast decks. I don't like the sometimes I want to play like really slow Yu-Gi-Oh and just like set my spy or set my Reiko and all that type of thing. But then other times I do get the urge to just say, fuck it, I want to go full speed ahead, strap my helmet on real tight,
Strap
and
it,
beat
baby.
some and just beat some cheeks in. So that deck is there. But alas, it did not win. Vayu Turbo won. I think excuse me. I think the Vayu Turbo deck is like. Hey guys, if you like this clip, we have full video versions of our podcast episodes available on the I Am Nerd Patreon, as well as exclusive content.
If you'd like to listen to our full podcast episodes or find us on any other social media platforms, you can do so by clicking the link tree below.